there's been this sort of media drumbeat where it's interesting where, they were talking about his approval numbers, and then suddenly they stopped talking about his approval numbers. And when you go to the actual polling, and it started with you, and it's been this cascading effect where they have to admit, wait a minute, his poll numbers are actually going up.
I'm going to go so far as to say that they 100% manufactured the 100-day decline. Did he decline from where he was in the honeymoon period, which in our polling was anywhere between +12 to +18? Of course. He was in the stratosphere, right? And then party identification takes over again, and we go back to being polarized. But he was never negative the way that these media pollsters had him negative. It was a respectable result to see -2, -1 or even or +2, plus, that was understandable during the height of people's fears about tariffs. But even when we had him at his lowest point, which was about even, Jack, something that I pointed out during that poll, which was interesting, is that and this never happens and never has happened under Donald Trump in our entire time polling him since he became a political figure. His favorability rating, which for folks who don't know, is how people see him, his image. Do they view him favorably? Do they like him? Or do they dislike him? His favorability was outpacing that low that we had measured him out for approval. And what does that mean? It means that people had some reason at that moment to say that they either were undecided or somewhat disapproved, and that's what brought that approval rating down, but they still liked him. And they were kind of just waiting to see what happened. And now that it didn't happen, and by it, I mean the world didn't blow up, Jack. NBC actually took down their egg tracker because eggs are not
Remember the egg tracker?
As
That's
they
right. I totally forgot about
to.
the egg tracker.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. And by the way, there was no egg tracker or bread tracker or gas tracker when we had an actual inflation crisis under Joe Biden in the spring of 22. Nothing, right? So now his approval rating's coming back up, and they don't want to talk about it anymore.
That's exactly right. They had the egg tracker. And by the way, there was none of this inflation stuff. Whenever you put the trackers, actually, Rich, we should talk about this for a second. When they put the trackers up online, that's something that or on screen, I should say, in the media.
It's a red flag.
That's something that they want their audience to get mad about. It is the red flag. Like a matador would fly in front of a bull saying, get mad at this, get mad at this. And so remember COVID, they had the tracker that went up. So the COVID tracker was up under Trump, was never up under Biden, was never up under him. And
they had a dead body.
Trump is killing all these people. Trump is killing all these people, even though more people died under Biden. And so they did Iraq, they did Afghanistan, they did all these different things. That is when the tracker goes up. That's the media running a psyop.
Yeah, they did it for Afghanistan, Iraq, and then when Barack Obama took over, by the way, after George W. Bush, even though those years under Obama actually were worse than after the surge for George W. Bush, they took those trackers down. When the COVID body count tracker was going up under Donald Trump, Joe Biden, again, you just said it, and you're 100% correct. There were more deaths under Joe Biden, and they took it down. I mean, this is how you and don't think for a second it doesn't influence people, especially people that watch their programs. Maybe they go from somewhat approved to strongly disapproved because they're seeing these trackers if you were to poll someone who consumes that news coverage. But that is explicit. They have an intention there to get people angry and to try to turn people against. In this case, it's Donald Trump, but they've done it to others in the past. And again, it only works temporarily. People should understand this. These are outrage, tools. They're tactics to get you outraged. Feign outrage over this for a short time. But if those things don't bear out, right, and of course something like the COVID or a war, it's totally different. But something like what NBC News and others did with the gas prices and shelter prices, and they had everything from the CPI up on that site, which they tweeted daily. daily. The egg tracker is down. The egg tracker's up.
Well,
right?
and
The worst part about it is, if you were actually to even during the weeks when eggs, for instance, were up, it was deeply dishonest, Jack, because they're only going back to the beginning of Trump's presidency. If they would go back to when Donald Trump handed Joe Biden the keys to the White House the first time in January 2021, they would have actually saw, and their viewers would see, that eggs are actually
Rich, let
down
me
from that time.
Rich, let me throw this one out at you then, because they kept saying that, well, Trump is underwater on the economy. They said Trump's underwater on the economy, and this is the issue because of his tariffs, because of Liberation Day. And we keep hearing this from sort of the Gasparinos of the world and these types who, bought NVIDIA high and are looking at red numbers on their phone all day. They're saying, oh, people are going to get mad. People are going to get mad at these tariffs. People are going to get so mad. He's underwater on the economy. Is that true? Because how would that track if the economy is one of his number one topics, number one issues they support Trump on, and then also that his approvals are going up?
It doesn't track. And when you look at the polls that do that, look at other issues, for instance, like immigration. The Reuters Ipsos poll, which is one of the worst polls, not only in the country, but in the world, they have Donald Trump +2 on the border. I don't think we have ever found Donald Trump in single digits on immigration. It's absolutely ludicrous that these people would continue polling without any scrutiny whatsoever. If they were trying to be honest, folks at home, folks listening, if they were honest and ethical, after missing as much as they have missed in their profession, which no other profession is allowed to be that bad at, by the way, you would get your walking papers if you were as bad as these people at doing your job. But the fact that they are that bad and didn't pause, Jack, and say, what am I doing wrong? Right? They're just immediately back into the field as if they did a credible job a couple of weeks before an election. It's unbelievable. And we have to stop tolerating it. We really do. And we have to start looking at these polls for, and giving them the weight they deserve, which is simply not much. Honestly, there's been 3 to 5 of us who, and I can name them right now, that have polled well in the Trump era. The rest of them are hot trash. And I'm not trying to be provocative or, attack anybody. It's a fact. It's not an attack. It's a fact. Morning Consult is a bad poll. Reuters Ipsos is a bad poll. The New York Times is a bad poll. If you can't poll an election, you can't poll anything else.